Good evening, my fellow. So my hair. See, my hair has a mind of its own. I have happy hair, if nothing. Well, I have a happy life actually. Anyway, last night I promised you that I would talk about the tests that you can do to find out your personality type, and thereby hopefully lead you at least in towards or point you at the right direction to find the right kind of work for you to do. Okay, so before we go on, we'll get the whole like and subscribe stuff out of the way. If you're finding this useful and it's helping, the whole channel is helping you to get a better handle on how to deal with stress and lowering your stress levels, and thereby as a side effect upping your happiness levels, then please like, please subscribe, because hopefully you would want to share that with the rest of the world. That is out of the way now. Right, so first of all, there's this pyramid thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm assuming that Maslow must have been a psychologist at some point in the past, and it's in 4 or 5 levels, and it says that first of all you've got to satisfy humanity's basic needs for food, shelter, safety, and then once those are satisfied, human beings, being human beings, look around for something more. So then they look for, I'm not sure what the order is, because I didn't write it down, but it basically sort of a fulfilling work, and then relationships which nurture the I don't want to use the word spirit or soul, because they can be contentious to certain people, but are mutually satisfying. And then at the top there's a sort of wealth, more than you actually need, and recognition finally. But I mean, until you've got a roof over your head, then you aren't going to bother too much with being famous, are you? I hope. And you might find, like a lot of people have done in the past, that being famous is more of a drawback than an advantage in a neat way. So there's that first of all, and the whole job situation is something that comes at about the second level, because the first one is you'll do whatever you've got to do, even if it's a job which you would consider to be unworthy of you, in order to put food on the table and keep your loved ones safe and secure. But once you are in a position to pick and choose, then many of us make several mistakes in our life, one of which is our decisions are made for us by the people around us. And by that, it could be friends. All your friends want to go off and be doctors, so you think you should be a doctor as well. I'm picking doctors because it's a great job, obviously, but it's not for everybody. It's a very high-stress job. I mean, imagine being a surgeon. You've got to cut people open. I'm squeamish. I know for a fact I couldn't do it. Or being a dentist, you got to be very tense. You can't budge. You make the slightest move and you possibly ruin somebody's mouth. Lawsuits, etc., etc., etc. So I'm not saying they're even glamorous jobs, but they're very highly regarded, very highly skilled, and they require a heck of a lot of ongoing study, not just the 7 or so years you do at university, but the whole of your life. You've got to keep up with a lot of medical advancements and other science as well. So a lot of people think, I want my child to be a doctor, so there's parental pressure, and that in itself would be one mistake. Another would be the rebellious child, because you make a lot of decisions about your careers when you're still at school. And I'm using the word child to mean anybody who's not of voting age. So, which is when these decisions are made, because you have to apply for university while you are not of voting age. So the rebellion. I wanted to go to university, but I wanted to see something of life first as well, because I hadn't seen much of the world as a youngster. So I made some decisions based on that, rather than asking myself, what kind of personality do I have? And the other thing is, well, I'm going to again give an example from my own experience. Not knowing what kind of personality I had, I disdained one particular profession, which, as it turned out subsequently, I was very good at, and that was teaching. I believe the George Bernard Shaw nonsense, utter nonsense, of those who can do and those who can't teach. In my defense, I did have one or two very poor teachers who they saw it as an easy option, and rather than have an office job, they went into teaching, but they were very poor teachers. That's a different story, though. As it turned out, turned out to be quite a good teacher. So I didn't do the second part of what I'm talking about here, which is the Briggs-Myers Test. Briggs-Myers, Briggs, and then Meyers. Briggs-Myers Test. I think that's right. If you type in Briggs, it'll come up in Google. So what that does is ask you a bunch of questions, and there are 6 personality types. And again, off the top of my head, there are creatives, there are the teacher types, nurturers, people who are very suited to be nurses, builders, who are very good at demolishing things, organizers, they're people who make good managers, and then there are the like librarians and archivists. They're great at organizing data. I think they're called a different kind of organizer. So those are 6. There are probably more, but these are broad categories, and then underneath there are suggestions for the kind of job that you would be good at. And not all of us fit neatly into one, but broadly into one. Maybe 75%, and then 25% into another. So it's possible to find jobs which span 2 kinds of activities, such as being an art teacher. So you can be creative there, and you can also teach. Organizers, so the people who organize events and things, but they're creative. So a wedding planner, where a wedding planner would get involved with giving advice on colour schemes and maybe themes. If somebody's getting married for the second time, they might be asked, we don't want this to look like sort of a very young person's wedding. We want to have a different sort of atmosphere. What do you suggest? Or somebody who does want a theme wedding. I remember once seeing photographs of a 1950s rock and roll wedding. So a creative person might then say, well, okay, you want to look at these colors, you want to have maybe look at these sort of films, and help to design the invitations and things so that it all fits in with the overall theme. So going on from yesterday, picking a job which is suited to you. If you've got a job which you love doing, trust me, because I taught for 10 years, and before that I was regularly not regularly sick rather, but I would be sick, and some of that was the effects of stress. But even when I was sick as a teacher, I still went in because I loved doing it so much. It's important, so important, to find something that you've got at least 60 to 70% compatibility with, that you really enjoy doing, because like I said, then it's not a job. You look forward to doing it, you go home, and that level of stress doesn't, because the cause of stress doesn't exist, that level of stress is taken away from you. And on the contrary, it's flipped. What you're doing actually makes you get towards your default state of happiness. And sometimes you go home and you're beyond happy, to the point where you are beyond even content. You are buzzing. Yeah. So 10 minutes and 22. I've gone on a bit again. However, right. So the Briggs-Myers Test, I'll put that in the notes in the description. And if you're interested in it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, you can check it out. It's just for interest. But the important one is the Briggs-Myers Test. And you could also type in tests similar to Briggs-Myers. Once you've got the result of your personality test, then go to Google and type in, for example, jobs suited to creative people. Okay, I'll put all that in the description. If you've enjoyed this, then I hope to see you tomorrow, and have fun. Here's to your greater happiness.